Just sign, kiddo. Your brother actually has the brains for business, Dad said, his grin slicing through the steam of roasted potatoes. He tapped the folder like it was already mine, like my signature was just a formality. You should be thanking us. Thanking them for carving my blood out of my own work? The laughter around the table sounded like glass breaking in my chest. The food smelled rich, but all I tasted was iron, like pennies pressed against my tongue. Hi everyone. My name is Aubrey Lane. I'm 27 and every dented fender, every engine roar, every midnight oil change has my fingerprints on it. I built my car business from grease, grit, and nights no one else stayed awake for. I didn't inherit it. I earned it. And now they wanted to trade it for signatures and smirks. Mom set her wine glass down, voice smooth as silk hiding scissors. This way is safer for you, Aubrey. He'll manage the accounts, take 25% and you'll still be the owner. Isn't that fair? Fair, like watching me carry bricks and handing him the house key. My brother leaned back, expensive watch glinting in the chandelier's glow. Don't overthink it. You fix cars. I'll handle the money. That's balance. His smirk was a scar stretched across the table. My phone buzzed once. An after-hours customer asking if their alternator was ready. I'd logged it, tested it, and triple-checked it. Work done silently like always. Proof. Evidence that I wasn't fragile. I steadied my breath, palm flat on the tablecloth. Patience, like when a rusted bolt refuses to move. Don't yank, steady pressure breaks it free. They thought I had no answer. They thought the night belonged to them. But at my feet my briefcase waited. Cool leather. Locked. Inside, not submission, salvation. Clause 4.3, ink that burned hotter than their roast. Dad shoved the pen toward me. Aubrey. Sign. The latch of my case clicked. Soft, sharp. Enough to cut the air in half. They didn't know yet. But the table was about to shift. The click from my briefcase echoed louder than their laughter. My brother's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second, but Dad waved it off like I was a child trying to play tough. Really, Aubrey? What's in there? Your doodles. His voice dripped with arrogance, every syllable daring me to prove him wrong. I slid the folder across the table back toward him. Before you finish signing away what you think is yours, I said evenly, you might want to check clause 4.3 of the shareholder agreement. His brows furrowed, the knife in his hand pausing midair. Clause what? The silence that followed was electric. Even the chandelier seemed to stop humming. My brother leaned forward, eyes narrowing, the smirk now replaced by the faintest twitch of unease. I laid the papers flat on the linen tablecloth, the ink sharp against the ivory fabric. The clause was highlighted in neon yellow. My insurance. My shield. My trap. Mom adjusted her swan-folded napkin, her fingers trembling just enough to betray her calm. Aubrey, what are you doing? I leaned in, my voice calm, measured. Clause 4.3 clearly states that any transfer of management rights requires unanimous consent from existing shareholders. Which, in case you forgot, is me. My brother's jaw tightened. You're bluffing. I tilted my head just enough to let the light catch my eyes. Read it. Dad snatched the page, his lips moving silently over the lines until his face drained of color. His hand shook, the knife clinking against the porcelain plate. For the first time in years he looked small. I watched the realization crawl across his face like a crack spreading through glass. He couldn't push me out. He couldn't strip me down. Not without my signature. Not without me. My brother's bravado snapped. You can't hold this over us forever. We're family. Family. The word felt like a rusted nail hammered into my chest. Family doesn't drag you into ambushes with contracts and roast dinners. I sat back, letting the weight of silence fill the room. My heart thudded steady, strong like an engine perfectly tuned. For once the control was mine. Family, I whispered, would have celebrated my work, not stolen it. And for the first time that night it wasn't me who looked weak. It was them. The chandelier flickered once, like even the light knew a storm had just broken inside that room. Dad's fork scraped against the china, the sound jagged as his pride. He shifted in his chair, trying to stitch authority back onto his face, but the thread had already snapped. You're being dramatic, Aubrey, he muttered, though his voice no longer carried weight. This is business. Not war. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table, the briefcase still open beside me like a loaded weapon. No, Dad. This is war. You just didn't expect me to bring ammunition. My brother shoved his chair back, the legs screeching across the hardwood. His eyes burned, but not with anger, with panic. You think a clause saves you? I can run that garage better than you ever could. Customers will follow the money. I almost laughed. Almost. Customers don't follow the money. They follow trust. And trust isn't something you inherit. It's something you earn. Which you've never done. Mom's lips quivered, her calm mask cracking. Aubrey, don't talk to him like that. He's your brother. My chest tightened, but not with guilt, with clarity. My brother, I repeated softly. The same brother who never lifted a wrench, never stayed up until 3 a.m. rebuilding an engine so a single mom could get to work, never scraped grease out of his nails before school. My brother who smells like the cologne I paid for. The room fell into silence, thick as smoke. Dad stared at me like he didn't recognize the daughter across the table, the one who had finally stopped begging for approval. I slid another page from the briefcase, laying it gently on the tablecloth. This one wasn't highlighted, it was circled in red. Clause 6.2. In the event of hostile interference, I read aloud, my voice calm and sharp, the original shareholder has the right to pursue legal action, including the freezing of all involved parties' assets until resolution. My brother's eyes widened. You wouldn't. I met his gaze, steady as steel. Try me. The chandelier flickered again, the light bouncing off my papers, my armor. For the first time, I wasn't just defending my business, I was defending myself. Dad opened his mouth, but no words came. He had built his authority on silence, on obedience. But tonight, the silence belonged to me. I stood slowly, sliding the documents back into the briefcase. My chair creaked, the sound final like a gavel. You brought me dinner and papers, I said, my hand tightening on the handle. But you forgot, I always bring receipts. The air stilled, the roast cooled, and in that hush, the family who once defined me now sat frozen, like engines that had lost their spark. I didn't sit back down. The chair remained empty behind me, a symbol carved in silence. My brother's smugness had evaporated. Now he gripped his pen like it was a lifeline. You're bluffing, he hissed again, but even he didn't sound convinced. His eyes darted to Dad, waiting for backup that wasn't coming. Dad cleared his throat, reaching for his glass of wine, but his hand trembled. Red liquid sloshed against the rim, staining the white tablecloth like guilt bleeding through. Aubrey, this is unnecessary. We're trying to help. I almost pitied him. Almost. Help. My laugh was low, humorless. Help would have been showing up when I worked 16-hour shifts in a freezing garage. Help would have been bringing me dinner when I skipped meals to keep the lights on. Don't twist theft into generosity. Mom whispered, don't do this. You'll regret cutting ties. I locked eyes with her, my voice steady. The only regret I'll ever have is thinking blood meant loyalty. The words landed heavier than any document. Mom looked down, folding her napkin over and over as though fabric could shield her from the truth. I leaned across the table toward my brother. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to put my pen down. You're going to walk out of my office and never touch a contract with my name on it again. Because the second you try, Clause 6.2 kicks in and everything you own, your accounts, your car, your little luxuries, will freeze. His jaw clenched, but his hand loosened. The pen dropped onto the plate with a hollow clink. For a moment no one breathed. The chandelier hummed again, softer this time, as if even it bowed to the shift in power. I snapped my briefcase shut. The sound echoed through the dining room like a door slamming shut on an old chapter. Dinner's over, I said simply. As I turned toward the doorway, the roasted lamb still steaming behind me, I felt something shift inside me. Not just victory but clarity. They wanted me cornered. Instead, I'd built myself a way out. And walking out, I swore. This wasn't the end. It was the opening act. The night air hit me like freedom when I stepped outside, but the victory was jagged, not smooth. My heels clicked against the driveway, echoing through the silence of a house that never truly felt like home. I reached my car and paused, fingers resting on the cold metal of the door handle. My chest was tight, not with fear anymore but with the weight of something heavier. Resolve. Inside, the glow of the chandelier spilled through the dining room window. Shadows moved behind the curtains. My parents' hunched silhouettes, my brother pacing like a caged animal. They were plotting already. I knew them too well. One strike wouldn't end this. They'd come again, sharper, dirtier, hungrier. I slid into the driver's seat, the leather still carrying the faint smell of grease and effort. My garage. My rules. My world. I gripped the wheel and thought of every late night I'd spent building what they tried to claim in one dinner. They underestimated me because I never bragged, never showed my teeth. But I wasn't their quiet daughter anymore. I was the woman who carried blueprints in her blood and contracts in her briefcase. The engine roared to life, steady and strong. I drove through the dark streets, headlights carving paths through silence. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, a message from a loyal customer. "Thanks again, Aubrey. Car runs like new. You're a lifesaver." A tear threatened, but I blinked it back. That one line was worth more than any inheritance, more than any approval. Proof that my name wasn't tied to theirs. It stood on its own. But then another notification lit up. A lawyer's number. Late night voicemail. My stomach tightened. They were fast. They had money, influence, and arrogance on their side. And they wouldn't stop at signatures. I pulled over beneath a streetlight, the hum of the engine filling the silence. My hands trembled, but not from fear, from anticipation. If they wanted a battle, I'd give them one. I opened my briefcase again, the neon highlight of Clause 4.3 glowing faint under the streetlight. And next to it I placed a fresh contract, one they didn't know existed yet. The real game was just beginning. By morning the storm had already moved closer. I arrived at my garage to find an envelope slipped under the door, crisp and heavy with intent. Their lawyer's seal glared up at me in deep blue ink. I tore it open, my hands steady, my pulse calm. Inside, a summons. They wanted an injunction claiming my business was mismanaged and required family oversight. The irony nearly made me laugh. The shop smelled of oil and rubber, the scent of my survival, and now they wanted to drag it into a courtroom circus. I dropped the papers onto my workbench, next to the half-dismantled alternator. Side by side, my two lives. One built with wrenches, the other tested in ink and signatures. I touched the grease-stained rag on the bench and whispered to myself, they have no idea who they're up against. My assistant Tyler poked his head in. "Boss, you okay? You look like you're about to rebuild the world." I smiled faintly. Something like that. He didn't need to know. Not yet. This was my war to fight, and dragging anyone else into it would only muddy the engine. I packed the injunction back into my briefcase, sliding it beside my own documents. Every clause, every highlighted line, every receipt I'd ever saved. They were more than papers now. They were weapons. Outside, sunlight broke through the clouds, hitting the chrome of a newly washed car parked in the lot. Its reflection blinded me for a second, sharp and dazzling. And it hit me, they wanted me cornered in court. I'd meet them there not as a victim, but as the woman who'd already won before the fight began. I zipped my jacket, grabbed my keys, and locked the garage door behind me. If they wanted a battle over ownership, they'd get it. But they'd also get the one thing they never saw coming. Me standing alone, unafraid, with the truth strapped tighter than any seatbelt. Courtrooms smell different than garages. Polished wood instead of motor oil, stale perfume instead of gasoline. Yet as I walked down the aisle between the benches, briefcase in hand, I felt the same steadiness I did when facing a stubborn engine. Calm, focused, ready. My parents sat on one side, their lawyer stiff and polished, my brother leaning back with false confidence painted across his face. He winked at me as if the judge's bench was just another dinner table. "Case number 2417, the clerk announced. Monroe versus Monroe." The irony stung, family reduced to a headline. Their lawyer stood first, delivering words dipped in venom but dressed as concern. "Your Honor, my clients only want to protect their daughter's livelihood. She is overwhelmed, unable to manage her finances properly. They request that her brother, with experience in management, be granted authority." I let them have their performance. Then when the judge turned to me, I rose. My heels clicked against the tile, sharp, deliberate. I opened the briefcase slowly, papers glinting under the fluorescent lights. "Your Honor," I began, voice steady, "I am not overwhelmed. I am overprepared." I handed over my file. Meticulous records, tax statements, customer contracts, every receipt cataloged down to the cent. This isn't just my business. It's my life's work. And Clause 4.3 ensures it cannot be touched without my consent. The judge's brow arched as he scanned the highlighted lines. My father shifted uncomfortably. My brother muttered something under his breath, quickly silenced by his own lawyer's glance. I pressed on. What they call protection is theft. What they call oversight is control. And what they underestimate, I said, eyes locking on my brother, is me. For a long moment, silence draped over the room. The kind of silence that doesn't just wait, it listens. The judge finally spoke, voice firm. The documents are clear. This business belongs solely to Ms. Aubrey Lane. Motion denied. My mother gasped. My father's hand slammed against his thigh. My brother's jaw locked tight. Me. I simply closed my briefcase. Because justice, like an engine, doesn't roar. It hums. The gavel's echo still rang in my chest as I walked out of the courthouse. The sky was soft gray, heavy with rain that hadn't yet fallen, like the world itself was holding its breath. My family trailed behind me in silence, their shadows long and broken on the marble steps. For once they had no words sharp enough to cut me. My brother tried to speak, "This isn't over," but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. I turned, calm, almost gentle. "It's over when I say it is. And I already did." His jaw tightened, but he couldn't hold my gaze. Dad stayed behind, shoulders slumped as though the weight of his own arrogance had finally pressed him into something smaller, something human. Mom clutched her purse like it was a lifeline, her eyes wet but not with remorse, only regret at losing control. I stepped onto the sidewalk, rain finally beginning to fall. Drops dotted the leather of my briefcase, but inside it was dry. My contracts, my proof, my freedom. I thought of every night I'd worked until dawn, every time I'd questioned my worth, every moment they'd dismissed me as just a daughter. Tonight the world had confirmed what I already knew. I was enough on my own. Back at my garage, the familiar scent of oil and steel wrapped around me like armor. Tyler looked up from under a hood, wiping grease from his hands. "Boss, you look like you just won a war." I smiled faintly. I did. And the right side won. The neon sign buzzed to life above us, bathing the bay in warm light. Engines waited, cars lined up, customers trusting me, not them. I placed the briefcase on my desk, closed, no longer a shield but a trophy. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was defending my business. I felt like I was owning it. Every bolt, every tool, every victory carved into the concrete floor beneath my feet. Family tried to claim my future with signatures. Instead, I rewrote my own story with strength. And when the last drop of rain slid down the garage window, I whispered the only word that mattered.